Welcome to Uniting the Cults. Another video here where I'm checking Mohammed Hijab's claims, in this case about Islam should be separated from Muslims, as he talks to Pearl or at Just Pearly Things.
What Muslim countries do is a different story. Sometimes you have Muslim countries that do all kinds of things. For example, honor killing or this one or that one, or if you someone being beaten or something, you'll find some pictures or videos online. The right-wing people are putting videos and pictures of people doing things which are not in line with Islam. For example, molesting women or sexual assault or something like that.
Oh, that's what. Yeah, because we had
Grooming and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I agree we should separate, in some sense, Islam, the religion, from Muslims, the people who follow a religion. Because part of it is because there isn't one Islam. There should be one Islam. You know, if it's real, there would be one Islam. But since it's fake, there's many Islams. And who knows, maybe it's difficult for me to imagine the if it's real scenario because it isn't. But suppose it is real. There would still be different versions of it in each person's head based on what that person understands about Islam. So, and then the same for countries. Countries is just a group of people, and if they're trying to implement Islam. So now let's say something in opposite of this now. They should be separated like that, but they should not be separated completely and say there's no cause and effect. So, for example, Islam is the only religion that says it should be self-proclaims that it should be also the government. And so what this means is now countries who follow this concept will make the Islamic rules the government. That's what the term Sharia law is all about. No other religion has this.
Because that's what it was. You're reminding me because
Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, because he was here the other day, and I think that's what he was talking about.
Yeah, in Islam, a man is not.
Would you say that's a problem in Islam? And this isn't like a gotcha.
No, it's not. It really, because the thing is, in Islam, there's strict rules about how a man or woman should operate. Okay, so for example, there's not allowed to be physical contact unless they're married. Any physical contact of any sort. So I find it hard to.
So yeah, there's those rules. What needs to be understood about rules is a couple of concepts that I learned from the law. There's a rule that you could be following it to the letter, or you could be following it in spirit. And this comes up in the law because oftentimes people are following a rule or a law by the letter because they're trying to get around it. And there's very often cases where a lawyer or a judge will say, no, we need to follow this law in spirit. And that means not doing it by the letter. You know, we're trying to figure out what the lawmaker meant by the words they used when they made the law. And so for Islam, the spirit of the law matters, not just the letter of the law. And in this case, he's saying the letter of the law is men and women should not, don't touch each other or something before marriage. But the spirit of the law is men rule over women. That's the major fucking problem.
To believe that a religion that says you're not allowed to have any physical contact and you shouldn't look at the woman lustfully, for example, which is something in the New Testament and the Quran as well, that you should be respectful to the woman. Yeah. How can you go from a religion that says that very clearly?
How can you be respectful of women when the religion itself says that men rule over women? You can't. That's the point. And this man does not know what respect is. That's part of the problem.
Clearly in its primary text to justifying grooming somebody. So there is no causal link between what some people in the West may do, and we won't deny there are some people who do bad things, so Muslim people.
He said,
what Islam. So you have to.
He said there's no causal link. I just explained there is. There's a causal link because of the concept I just said, the spirit of the law. The spirit of Islamic laws is men rule over women. That's the fucking problem. And that's not the only problem, obviously. The spirit of the law, Islamic law, is men rule over women. Adults rule over children. Muslims rule over non-Muslims.
Differentiate between it.
And by the way, that's what leads to things like, so there's Muslims who will see other Muslims and say, no, you're not Muslim, and they will kill them. Now, this does go against, if you were to follow the letter of the law, yeah, Islam says don't do that. But following the spirit of the law, it is that, because there's going to be Muslims who say that other Muslims are not actually Muslims because they're not following various parts of Islam. Islam itself says these things. It doesn't, you have to take 4 or 5 statements and combine them to understand the logic of where they lead. But where they lead is things like what Muslims are actually doing, which is killing other Muslims because they think they're not Muslims.
Islam and Muslims, just like you have to differentiate between Christianity and Christians.
Mm-hmm.
So someone's strongest argument against Islam is, there's grooming gangs in the West and people are coming here because they want to come and live here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why therefore Christianity is true.
So but I'm just asking, is what he's saying true? Are there
there is a woman called Elaine Cockbain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a professor. I think she's written something about this, and what she had shown is that actually the grooming phenomena is not in fact disproportionate to Muslims and Asians. Mm-hmm. She considers it to be a problem, and also it's a problem with Westerners. It's mm-hmm. not just like minority groups. Mm-hmm. Another problem that is very specific to Westerners, and I looked at the reports. There's one by the World Health Organization about mm-hmm. stranger rape. Now, obviously, rape itself. I mean, the criterion of assessment of how do we agree with any woman without evidence? No, we don't. We have to have evidence for it. But for the sake of argument, the World Health Organization mentioned
we have to have evidence for it. So in Islam, there's no such thing as marital rape. Now, what he was saying earlier was the Islamic rules, if you follow them by the letter. Now, he didn't say this. I'm interpreting for him. If you follow it by the letter, then you wouldn't be touching women before marriage. But that same set of laws, Islamic laws, if you follow it to the letter, you can rape your wife and it won't be considered rape. That's so fucked up.
That stranger rape is actually more prominent in Western countries than it is in Islamic countries. Different kinds of rape, according to this report about sexual assault, is in fact more prominent in the Islamic countries than Western countries.
So there's no way to know that you shouldn't be comparing statistics in the US for sexual assault and rape and the same kind of statistics for Muslim majority countries like Saudi Arabia. And the reason is, and you can tell, you can do the same kind of comparison within the US across time. So today in the US, there's a little bit of social stigma and problems that women will face if they expose that they were raped. If you go back 50 years, it was much bigger. So there was a lot of women not reporting the rapes 50 years ago, where today it's less. So the statistics today are more reliable than 50 years ago, compared US statistics. But now, if you compare today US statistics to Muslim majority countries, in those other countries, they're very much like the US 50 years ago or worse. And so there's a huge pressure for women to avoid reporting their rapes. So, of course, the statistics in these Muslim majority countries are going to be bullshit. It's not much different than, or it's the exact same, really, than if you were trying to look at the statistics for Muslims and ex-Muslims. You can't trust that shit because there's closet ex-Muslims. So there's closet victims of rape. For the same reason there's closet ex-Muslims. We fear, not me, I live in the US, but people in these other countries, they fear having their heads chopped off. They fear being socially outcast. They fear losing their business. They fear losing their family. So they don't speak out. So they end up being treated as a Muslim, ruining all the statistics.
Countries, but according to this report, it's actually stranger rape is more
So
common.
I guess the way that I would guess it, though, that's got to be because they call everything rape. And I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but like my mind immediately goes to the reason those stats are out of control in the West is because they call everything rape.
But then it should be commensurate with the other rape, because there's sexual assault of, like, for example, a close family member and stuff like that. That was lower in parts of the Western world as it was in other places. So there's no issue here of there's anonymity that get guaranteed. Do you know what I mean? In these reports, I'm not saying their reports are right or every claimant of rape is something which is true. But what I'm saying is that if we looked at the official and most,
I don't know what she's talking about here, but they're treating everything as rape. There's this new thing happening in California, which I agree with. It's the first state that's dealing with something called stealthing, which is where a man and a woman are having consensual sex, and then he does something not consensual. He like removes the condom and ejaculates inside of her without her knowing or without her having, giving consent. And they're trying to treat that not as rape, but as sexual battery. And that's a great law. And I'm kind of surprised we don't already have this. Surprised that this is all fucking new. I never heard of this term, or that even people do shit like this. But it makes sense, because what's happening there is, if you think of a sexual interaction as multiple interactions within one set of interaction, and all of it has to be consensual. You in the middle of it, if the woman or the man decides, hey, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, that should be able to happen. Not that you get free reign. Where the extreme other version of this is in a Islamic marriage, where, okay, now we're married, and now that we're married, I get to have sex with you whenever I want without your consent, all the way up until we're divorced.
strong statistics that we have, there's no evidence that Muslim people are more likely to commit sexual assault on women than any non-Muslim people.
Because I think, I'm trying to remember, he would say it's because it's covered up, right? I think that's what Tommy would say. Like, why does, I'm just curious. Like,
yeah, I mean,
because it's interesting, because I'll talk to two people and they'll both, like, neither will seem to me to be liars, right? They'll both, like, they might be, I don't know.
Yeah,
but I tend to like, people, but I'll talk to you. You seem smart. You seem.
Let me clarify here. You can be a liar and not know you're fucking lying. So then you won't seem like you're lying. Lying, let's use a different word here. It's about dishonesty, and which is lack of honesty. Honesty is work. You have to do the work to be honest. If somebody tells you a story about a friend of yours, and it's clearly saying something negative, it's gossip, and then you go spread that story without first checking if it's fucking real, you're being dishonest. You're lying, even if you don't know you're lying. Suppose you're just stupid and you don't know how things work. You're 6 years old and you just heard this and you don't know the process of how to be honest, like to go check. Maybe the person lied to you, or maybe the person was just wrong, had the wrong information. Not doing the steps necessary to find out if it's true is dishonesty. It is lying, whether you know how to do it or not.
Like, you're telling me the truth.
I'm giving you references
Tommy,
as well, right?
Yeah, and Tommy, it's like a similar thing, and he'll also give like his references.
Look, there's a kernel of truth in what he says.
Yeah,
that's what makes it attractive.
So my question more is, like, why do you think he thinks that?
There are instances where you find people from an Asian background and a Muslim background that are committing sexual assault on women who are white. That does happen in the West. It's happened in Germany. It's happened in the UK. Now, it's how you report on this issue. So, for example, if you were to say that this is something which comes back to Islam as a religion, I say to you, prove that, please, because in Islam as a religion, it's very strict on gender relations. In fact, that's one of the central.
I'm proving it right now. I'm explaining it right now. If your religion teaches men rule over women, that's already the fucking problem. That's going to result in tons of things, in tons of men acting in that way. Men rule over women. It also results in problems for the other gender, the women. It teaches women to believe they are inferior to men. This is why there's so much fewer ex-Muslim women than ex-Muslim men. If you look at my YouTube statistics, it is like 92% men, 8% women. Now, there's could be many factors there. Couple of them are, there's more men than women on YouTube, like 55-45. And then a lot of my traffic is coming from Reddit, and Reddit is even more men dominated. It's 65-35, I think. But those two numbers combined is not enough to explain 92-8 for my YouTube statistics. And there's could be other factors. Maybe I'm the type of guy women don't like seeing on TV or something, or they don't like hearing what I'm saying, or I have a really nasty voice instead of a pleasant voice like women often have. But I don't think that's what it is. I think the explanation that accounts for the biggest part of it is there's fewer women ex-Muslims because of this thing. They've been brought up to think they are less smart, less valuable than men. And part of why women are getting indoctrinated more than men is in these societies, men as teenagers and even younger, they are allowed to go outside and hang out with their friends away from home, where women are not. In general, women are not. They're supposed to stay at home. Sometimes they're locked in their fucking room. That's the kind of stuff that happens in these countries. I know women that were like this. My ex-wife was like this. She told me her father did this to her. She was locked up in her room for a year.
Criticisms of Islamic countries that there's so much, it's so strict, a woman has to cover up. Why does a woman have to cover up? In the Quran, it says, فَلَا يُؤْذَيْنَ. The reason why is so that she doesn't get molested. So to prevent sexual assault. One of the reasons is to do that. So if the Quran is telling you this clearly, if this is in the basic precepts of the Quranic discourse, then it's where you make a causal link between Islam and this phenomena where the fallacy lies, because not every correlation is a causation. You're jumping from a correlation, which is not even a fair.
We're not jumping from a correlation to a causation. I'm explaining it very clearly. Maybe these other idiots are doing that. My guess is this guy's not listening, and they are explaining, and he's not listening. He's kind of assuming there's no explanation, and then he's saying correlation doesn't mean causation.
One into a causation, and that analysis is flawed. Another thing I would say is, if you look at human trafficking, there's in this country they have the Slavery Act. If you look at the particulars of that particular act and see who are the victims, according to the study of human trafficking, it's usually women from an ethnic background. And who are the perpetrators? A lot of the time, it's white men. So anyone can make a case about anything. Do you know what I mean? If I dedicated my Twitter and my YouTube to looking at all the white perpetrators of sexual assault, putting a picture of them and saying this guy done this and this, he was convicted of that, that could be a full-time job for me. And then if I was to be even worse and say this is as a result of Christian teachings, someone say, what's that got to do with Christian teaching? It could be a Christian man, but that's nothing to do with Christian teaching. The Catholic Church is very famous for the priests molesting the boys.
Well, yeah, but if someone asked me like why like people thought that the priests were molesters, I would say because like it happened, like it wouldn't.
There's nothing in Christianity that says that's legitimate.
Correct. Like, but I would just say it's
no. This is retarded. There are things in Christian institutions which, and I don't mean statements in the Bible about what rules exist or not. I'm talking about if you consider the whole fucking environment. And I'm including everything that's happening today. If what is this thing they were just talking about, the priests molesting children? Suppose that wasn't happening in the first 500 years of Christianity. You should ask why. It's the environment that Christianity is in today that is causing it. From what I understand, it's Catholic churches where this is happening, and it's a scenario where these priests that are doing this, they're not allowed to have a marriage. Maybe it would have been better if they could. By the way, in Islam, imams can get married. That I think would have been better. Although there's this, what is it, in the Far East, there's monks, which is equivalent of a priest. They don't get married, but they're also not around a bunch of kids, as far as I know, and there's no big, conspiracy to hide that monks are molesting children.
Because like that happened.
Yeah,
So
sure.
I guess like, do you think it's more common in Islam or like from Muslim backgrounds? Or
I
do
don't
you
think
think it's
so.
all made up?
I don't think either of those propositions are true. I think the
Mhm.
truth is somewhere in the middle.
Mhm.
Look, Islam is 1 out of 4 people in the world today, and
Oh wow, that's high.
in the world, right? And if we're talking about the end of the century, it'll be 1 out of 3 people. It will be
Mhm.
the biggest. If the world was in front of you, and the population of the world is in front of you, 1 of every 3 people that you're going to meet in 2100, according to Pew Research, is going to be Muslim.
Let's be clear about some things. Like I said, there's as many Islams as there are Muslims. Each Muslim has a different conception of what Islam is. Okay. Now, a big factor is how they were raised, the culture they came from. So, suppose, like for me, I was raised in America, and I had Muslim parents born and raised in Syria, and so, and I went to American public schools. I watched American TV. My parents were very liberal family from Syria, so they're on the side of, compared to other Syrians, I mean, they're on the side of, peace loving, freedom loving. Like I wasn't, violently beaten. I wasn't beaten at all as a kid, except for one time I remember getting hit by my dad. Where and but there are Syrian families where there's a lot of beating going on, and of course that's all over the world. There's violent people in America too, obviously. But the point is, it's the culture you're coming from, and including your little family, which is the smallest unit of culture here. That results in how you are by the time you're an adult. I mean, it's not only your environment, it's also your own decision making. But a big part of it is your environment. And so you will have, these he said 1 in 4 people. So what is that? 2 billion? So 2 billion Muslims. 2 billion Muslims around the world. Saudi Arabian Muslims are going to be significantly different than Muslims born and raised in the US. One huge difference, for example, is Muslims in the US in general, born and raised here, okay, don't believe in nonsense like jinn and demons. Muslims born and raised in Muslim majority countries do. And that shit is old. That shit, like the belief in demons and jinn and stuff like that, is many centuries and older than that. The West started getting rid of that during the Enlightenment era. So we're talking 500 years worth of changing to get rid of stupid ideas like that. And as far as I can tell, any part of the world that didn't adopt Enlightenment values yet still holding on to stupid ass ideas like jinn and demons.
So it's obviously, when you have adherents of a faith that are that plentiful and numerous, you're going to have a disproportionately higher number of criminals in that number.
Okay, so your view is it's just there's a ton of people.
Yes.
And that's why like that.
No, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think where you do find instances of criminality in the West by, say, people from countries that are Muslim is usually to do with social class. That's my final analysis, in the sense that the number one predictor of criminality anywhere in the world, I think, is social class. A person who's rich has less reason to commit crimes than someone who's poor.
Okay.
The risk-reward ratio for them is less. And so it just so happens in the UK, for reasons to do with the war and history, after World War II, obviously Britain was a colony. It brought all these people that are blue-collar workers from Pakistan, from India, from all these different countries to work as blue collar workers, they were working class here. So a lot of them, a large contingent, became criminals, not because of where they're from or what belief they have. It's just because of the conditions they had. That's why you'll find when I went to California in the United States of America, the United States of America had a completely different selection process when they were bringing people into the country. And in California, for example, the same people from the same countries, but they were middle class and now maybe even upper class professionals and so on, because America was much more careful as who comes in.
So,
Now
not
they are
anymore.
Yeah, no, maybe
They
I
just
don't
let
know.
everyone in now.
I don't think so. Now they become. It's very difficult for even us to go inside there as a visitor.
Legally,
Trust me,
but
yeah.
no, freaking. Even where I'm from, it's like there's like buses of people.
But on the issue of because they don't have colonies in Pakistan and India and you know, these countries in the Middle East, and so as a result of that, when they're bringing people in now, they had more selection. They weren't trying to rebuild the country.
So you think it's a class? Like they're basically bringing in low class people. So they're getting low class.
So what they're getting is when you have what I'm saying is, we've always heard black people.
Yeah, I don't agree with any of this. There's plenty of people that are rich and they have evil ideas, and then they use those evil ideas to decide that they should commit evil to protect their riches and to get richer. And there's plenty of rich people that don't do that. They're good people, don't have those evil ideas. And the same for poor people. There's good poor people and evil poor people. And being rich or poor doesn't lead you to good and evil. But in your family line, if in your family line there was a lot of people getting educated, that helps towards turning good and getting away from evil. If in your family line there wasn't a lot of getting educated, then you're leaning on shit like Islam, and you don't have the better ideas that would stop you from being evil. And then if your family immigrates to a country like the US, and then you bring kids into the world in the US, they are getting some stuff from you, the parents, but they're getting a lot from public school, the other Americans, the kids of the other parents, TV, internet, all that stuff. And that's a source of education, a source of, you know, seeing how people act and you know, when you have when you can see, like, on a menu 10 different ways of living versus only one, it's easier to see the truth when you can see all of it.
Black criminals, it's because of the color of their skin. Race realists would say that. Some people would go as far as it's because of the color of their skin. Some would say it's because of their culture. Some would say that. I say the number one predictor is class, which is, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, or Arab, or from a Pakistani background, or whatever background you're. If you are working class, you are more likely to be engaged in criminality anywhere in the world. And the reason why I brought to your attention the case of the Pakistan is the same people with the same religion, okay, but you put them in one place, they've got a different working class. So the risk.
Another problem with what he's saying is there's plenty of rich people doing evil shit, and by being rich, they have more money to commit evil. Where if a poor man had the same evil ideas as the rich man, he would commit less evil because he doesn't have the money to do it. Let me say one last thing. It's about a week out till June 14th, the big event, the launching of Uniting the Cults, where we're talking to some experts about apostasy and everything related, all the obstacles that are getting in the way to reach our goal of ridding the world of apostasy laws. Join us June 14th, 12 p.m. Central Time. Thank you.